It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a weekly podcast where we talk about everything that's great. Like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris.
And my name is Mike.
And this week, we're making our Super Bowl trailer predictions. But we'll probably have another episode before the Super Bowl, so, we're just going to talk about what we know and what we don't know. How about that?
You know what? That's all anyone can do.
Really. Maybe some snack ideas while we're in there. Lanterns is the next DCU project to start filming, so that's moving along. The DCU is, I guess. Henry Cavill is probably coming to Star Wars, so
this man will not leave me alone.
he's in all your franchises and more.
It's like if you have a handsome buff guy in Hollywood, like it's almost like Hollywood collectively is just like, well, we have to do something with them, right? Mm-hmm. We can't just leave them on the shelf. That I feel like that's like waste. It's like wasting bread or something. Like we can't let them go moldy. So what franchise do we put him in? It's like, well, we all thought he was going to be in this Warhammer thing, but that seems to be taking a while. So throw him in a Star Wars, keep him fresh.
Yeah, well, he was in The Witcher. He was in The Witcher. He left The Witcher to do the Star Wars. They tried to bring him back into DC, Mike, after several years of him not being in there. Then that ended. He's been in Mission Impossible. He was in what was it, Enola Holmes on Netflix with Millie Bobby Brown.
Personally, I think he is more interesting when he's evil, when he's like a bad guy.
Yes,
when he's like absolutely seething and his like teeth are like just wretched. Like that's what I want to see. That's most interesting to me. Like the suave cavalier hero.
Cavalier.
It's like easy for him because he already looks the part. He doesn't even have to try. So I like seeing him be evil.
Zack Snyder really never made him a sympathetic character. Like he was never like a happy character as Superman either. Like he was always
he was briefly evil Superman and was the Justice League movie. Yeah. In the Justice League movie, right?
Yeah, in the future state too of what was it, the Batman v Superman?
Oh yeah, and I liked. I liked. There's glimmers of that I like.
When he cocks his arms in Mission Impossible, like shotgun.
We all love that. We all loved that.
Yeah. So and obviously he's been in our Marvel. He dipped his toes in our Marvel recently with Deadpool and Wolverine. Mm-hmm. So and
he was kind of like not evil, but he was kind of rude in that he was kind of like, oh, I'm a jerk, get out of here, Deadpool. Yeah. And he was scowling,
smoking the cigar. I'm pretty sure too. I mean, what a rude boy. He knows smoking kills.
But I was gonna say at the top of the show, I say we love TV, movies, and superheroes. I think we're gonna have to add a new category to this, Chris, and say we love TVs, movies, superheroes, and retro electronics.
Well, it's TVs. It falls under TVs.
Retro TVs. So you put something new in front of me this week that I didn't even know existed, and I love how you acted. You acted very cavalier yourself. Don't you? I'm trying to get this TV. Like I knew it existed. I'm like, what is this TV and why is there a Nintendo cartridge poking out?
Yeah. So the people know we are one of the most, other than food, the thing we talk about most outside of the show is probably themed televisions, tube TVs from pre-2006. Almost to a fault, I would say. We are doing that, and I picked up a Superman TV. We've been dabbling, looking at the Batman televisions from that same era because they have the sweet VCR DVD player that goes with that thing and lights up. But I came across an opportunity, and I don't know if I'm going to get it yet or not, to get a Sharp television from 1989 that has a Nintendo NES built into it. And Mike, you know me, I love a good project. I love fixing things, taking things apart, and this thing is supposedly not working properly, but I'm like, I can kind of guess where it could be worked on a little bit, something in my skill set. So it is essentially a television that was sold for 6 months in 1989 that literally has a full-fledged regular Nintendo built into it with the controller ports, which is wild to me that they did this. back then, because it makes me think of like hotels. Remember when you used to go to hotels in the 90s and they had like the Super Nintendo controller coming out of them?
Yeah, it's like this doesn't exist anymore. Nobody builds a console into a TV anymore. It's such a... I almost thought when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, did this come out of like an old like Kmart or something?
Yeah.
You know, was this like one of those like like not PlayStations, but play stations within the electronics area where you could go up and like demo like Mario?
Right. Well, exactly. It's like one of those ones, like, remember craning your neck at the Walmart, looking up at the top shelf there to play it? Yeah, it feels like that. I don't know. I like I said, this was just sold briefly on the market. It's notorious for its plastic legs breaking off because they're like outside. So yeah, it'd be a fun little project if I can get it, but it's got to be for the right price. They are very, very, very expensive when you get them working, and this is already expensive enough as it is broken. So I'm like, ooh, do I even go down this road kind of thing to do that? Because it doesn't. One of these TVs from the 90s, Mike, I don't know if you know this, they don't have RCA cables built into them. Like, you have to use the coaxial alone. So I'm trying to pull it up here online to see if anyone has any for sale, Mike. That's how rare this thing is. I don't even see it for sale in shopping.
Well, I mean, you yourself said whenever you reach out to me about something, you're looking for me to give you the go ahead to clear your conscience.
Yeah.
So I don't see why you don't get it. I mean, you're being responsible in a sense of you're trying to sell other electronics to fund this electronics purchase. The Steam Deck, it looks like it's on its way out.
Yeah, I don't use the Steam Deck as much as I could because I ended up with a gaming computer. That just happened to fall in my lap whenever I was unemployed, and I got to keep the computer I had for work. So, a downside and an upside at the same time. So I haven't used the Steam Deck. So I'm like, well, it's one of those things like, Mike, and you might appreciate this. If you don't use it for a certain time, does it spark joy, and should it be moved into the hands of someone who could use it better?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, you're very much the person that has been kind of like just moving around the same couple $100s for years. It seems like You'll buy one electronic, you'll sell it on Facebook Marketplace, that funds another one, and that funds another one. So this is like kind of like the girl math / boy math part of it. Just like it's all the same money. I've only spent this money once. It just filters through different pieces of components in plastic.
and there's nothing more satisfying than buying something that needs a little work and then fixing it and then getting to enjoy the fruits of your labor, right? Like, you're like, oh, I did this. I didn't buy it working. I fixed it and kind of did it myself. And I that's the hook that's got me. I'm like, oh, I need a little project. And my wife looked at me. She's like, do you need another project? I'm like, hold up. Most of my stuff's put up right now. Okay, I could take another project on.
Hey, hold on. We're about to have a Super Bowl party. I think people would really like to see this half-functional, weird Nintendo console.
Right. I could get NES football for it. With a couple little pixels on the screen, and we could all play football together.
You know what? I don't see why not.
Yeah, exactly. But Mike, you bring us to a good point. We're going to talk about the Super Bowl coming up next weekend, because I also went out and got myself a 3-pot crock pot this weekend, because I need more than one dip in my crock pots, Mike. I want to have a variety of dips going on here for the Super Bowl. And thankfully I saved big money by going to Menards, where they had this crock pot on clearance. And I believe I've figured out my 3 things I want in here, Mike, and I'm going to run it by you. You tell me what you think.
Okay.
One is obviously the Velveeta Rotel cheese dip, the standard food, right?
Gotta.
Yes. The second one, I sent you a link to some beer cheese. I've never done beer cheese myself. I would like to make some beer cheese.
Okay, so we're doing 2 cheesy dips. Okay.
Yeah, one that's probably gonna be a little. I think the Rotel, I'm gonna go with the spiciness. I want a little heat to it. Beer cheese is for those who just want to maybe it's chips, maybe they're dipping some mini pretzels in it. I don't care, whatever you want. And then the third one, I believe, is going to be some barbecue meatballs. It's not going to be a dip. It's going to be something a little different. But I can have all 3 in one serving in front of everybody.
Yes, I would suggest strategically to put the meatballs in the middle.
Yep.
Give a bit of a gap between the 2 cheeses so people don't get too confused.
Well, let's be visually appealing.
Yes.
It'd be balanced. Just like Thanos, our Super Bowl spread needs to be balanced as well.
Yeah, you don't want the cheeses crossing. That's dangerous. You don't know what can happen if beer cheese mixes in with that Velveeta. The Velveeta is an unstable compound once you melt it. You know, it's meant to be a solid, and we have the hubris as humans to make it a liquid. So just be careful with that.
It's a cheese product, really, not real cheese. So yeah, we'll take it.
Cheese adjacent, cheese with quotation marks.
Yeah.
But this is a good way to let the listeners know that next week will be our most awkward show of the year, where you will be listening to next week's episode after all of the Super Bowl trailers are already out, and we will not have watched them at that time. And you'll have to stay tuned for yet another week for us to talk about all the Super Bowl trailers and all the Super Bowl media. But I do believe we do have a big trailer releasing just within a couple days that we will be able to talk about next week.
Yeah,
but I feel like I pitched a compromise to Chris, and I was like, all right, well, if the listeners next week aren't really going to be able to hear our Super Bowl trailer rundowns, at the very least we can do a big spoiler review for Skeleton Crew, because I realized just hours ago, like, we haven't talked about that show really at all, except for like a few episodes here and there. So next week we'll run down Skeleton Crew. We'll talk about the new trailer for Marvel that's going to be dropping in just a couple days, and then we'll do a whole big old roundup of all the fun stuff in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and honestly, there might be something. Honestly, we might. This is logistics, Mike. We might look at doing it Saturday. That way, we have more time Sunday to prepare for the big game, if you will. Because we'll talk about it here later. But like, I don't know when the Puppy Bowl starts. In compared to the Super Bowl, but Warner Brothers sponsoring the Puppy Bowl means that the Superman trailer will be there, and any other Warner Brothers property will only run during the Puppy Bowl and not during the Super Bowl proper, if you will. So we will figure it out when we cross that bridge. But I think that brings up here. I've got a list of trailers that are pretty much assumed to debut, Mike, and I only know this because I've seen a list of people who have not bought spots for the Super Bowl, and I was like, well, if they didn't buy a spot, maybe if they aren't on this list, they probably bought a spot. And I think the first biggest one, who comes every year regardless, is Disney, right? Disney properties will always come to the Super Bowl, and I feel at the top, these are probably three things that are going to affect us the least right now. But Snow White, live action Lilo and Stitch, and Elio will be the three regular Disney movies that we will see trailers of. Does that sound pretty fair to you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they're going to get that in there and just remind people are coming. Now, they have said, the scoopers have said, Disney has bought 2 Marvel spots. We have 3 Marvel movies this year, and I'm going to guess that the MCU movie spots are going to be Captain America and Thunderbolts, and not Fantastic Four, but we may have a reason for that that we're going to talk about later. Captain America will literally release within days after the Super Bowl. Comes out February 14th in theaters. Thunderbolts will kick off May. We've only had one teaser, one trailer. So I think this will be the one where we get a little more action, a little more plot points than we've gotten before. Probably
it will be kind of interesting, because usually we kind of make it a point to be like, if we're this close to releasing of a film, we are not going to watch any TV spots. We're not going to watch any more trailers, get your tickets now type of thing, because they always pack all of the spoilers that they can to get as many butts and seats just before the movie comes out. And I can't imagine a more intense TV spot than the one at the Super Bowl just before the movie comes out. So obviously, big opportunity to sell more tickets and awareness for a film that they can go see just days later.
Right.
But yeah, it is going to be like, what do they get? I mean, we already know we got Red Hulk in there, but maybe they could tease something else. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what they could throw in there? Is it going to be like one of those legacy spots or something like that, or Red Hulk, maybe the leader? I don't know. So Captain America, if it's not Captain America, it's Fantastic Four, but I guarantee you Thunderbolts will be one of those 2 trailers. Mike.
They could do something a little different, where I know they've done this with Disney Plus in the past before, where instead of just getting like a Daredevil trailer, they'll do like a whole Disney Plus trailer, and you'll see clips of a bunch of different stuff. I mean, I don't think Marvel has done that with their features before, but we do know kind of infamously the DCEU did that once, right? Where they were teasing The Flash, Aquaman 2, something else coming up as well, and they were like, "Oh man, our superhero universe is really heating up," and then like all of that was like a lie, and they had to like delete the trailer off the
Birds
internet.
of Prey or something like that. It was
maybe
Black Adam, possibly Shazam, one of those movies that we have forgotten to time. But it could be literally anything. But I think Thunderbolts will be one. Captain America is probably highly likely. It's looking to open around 100 million, which is pretty good for a February movie release. So they could be trying to close some final ticket sales on that one. Going into other movies outside of the Disney realm, Jurassic World Rebirth. Absolutely expect this trailer to be dropping this week. With Scarlett Johansson, and I forget it's the guy's name who's in Wicked, who plays the main love interest in Wicked. He's in that, so they're going to be leaning into that. How to Train Your Dragon live action, Mike. We're going to probably get a second trailer for that one. Megan, or M3gan, as we'll call it, 2.0. That movie, I'm surprised it's got a 2. It's not like it was a bad movie, just surprised a movie like that we get a sequel. I've not heard or seen anything about the Smurfs, Mike. A live action, I guess, kind of like the Trolls movie, maybe, for Smurfs. But we'll probably see our first look for that. And then, like we talked about earlier, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning will probably get its big game spot as well for these.
Yeah, absolutely wild for the Smurfs to make an appearance at the Super Bowl. I don't know what audience that they're reaching. I can't imagine the Venn diagram
just
for
anybody
Smurfs in the Super Bowl.
Just anybody. They're like, hey, do you know we're making this? Because I honestly did not know until recently that they were making
I mean,
this.
maybe it could be like a tonal shift type of thing. Maybe it's like, oh, this isn't just for kids. This is actually, we're kind of reaching back for nostalgia purposes, and this is going to be like, oh, we're going to have jokes that your kids aren't going to understand that are going to be raunchy and funny, and we could look it up right now on IMDb, but I'm not going to. But like, it's like, oh, what if like Seth Rogen? That could possibly be a reason to promote it in front of a big audience like the Super Bowl.
Yeah, there was some big voice actors tied to this. Nick Offerman, Natasha Lyonne, Dan Levy, Nick Kroll, James Corden. There's a big list of people in here. Kurt Russell, John Goodman. I've not seen anything on it. It's not crossed my radar yet, but it comes out in July, so Paramount needs to push it out there. So I think that'll be absolutely interesting. And this is, this list kind of comes, this guesstimation comes from my list of companies who are not bot spots. Warner Brothers, we talked about, they essentially do the Puppy Bowl, so we know that Superman's going to be there with the crypto play of the game. Sony has no trailers. Netflix has no trailers. Amazon/MGM has no trailers. Apple didn't get any spots, and Lionsgate got no spots, Mike. So it's going to be...
Netflix has kind of been doing their own thing the last week or so. I don't know if this is just like a media strategy they do at the beginning of the year, but they've been kind of like going, oh, what's next on Netflix? What's coming this year on Netflix? And I've seen like just tons of stuff teased in my feed, so I think that's probably their strategy.
I was gonna say when is To Dumb? It's usually, it was Q2 2023. So did you see the intro to their Devil May Cry series, the animated intro?
Oh,
so it uses Limp Bizkit's I think it's Rolling as the intro song to this whole show, which we laugh now, but 100% the people who were playing Devil May Cry on PS2 back in early 2000s were people listening to Limp Bizkit along the way. It instantly brought me back to Jinko Jeans, and I'm like, yep, I see exactly who they're going for with this show.
Chris, I hear no lies coming from you.
So I was like, oh, this lines up perfectly. But yeah, Netflix is kind of doing their own thing, but like, yeah, it's interesting because Amazon, and this is, we're going to change topics here, Mike, because the next thing was like Invincible season 3 is dropping on this Thursday, February 6th. So I figured they might do, like you mentioned, Amazon, Netflix, even Apple. this is an opportunity for them to buy one of those spots that showcases all they have to offer. Apple's Severance season 2 is ongoing, right? Finally, critically acclaimed shows on Apple. Amazon's got Invincible, some other shows. Netflix, the same thing. So I was hoping maybe like a One Piece teaser, even, Mike, because season 2 will be this year. But Amazon is skipping it, and they're gonna just not do anything. But again, for those who are excited for Invincible, you don't need a trailer. You're already gonna be watching some of the show on February 6th when it comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
But that'll also, this all just kind of rolls together. The reason why we think Fantastic Four will not be at the Super Bowl is because there has been a Good Morning America agenda leak for this coming Tuesday, February 4th, that they will be talking about the trailer on Good Morning America this Tuesday. So I assume by the time you're up, Mike, on Tuesday morning, this trailer will be all over the place. There will be screenshots, high-res screenshots for you to feast your eyes upon.
And the trickiness with that is like I wake up in the morning, I open my phone, and whatever like the big popping moment in the trailer, like you just said, has been screenshotted and upscaled by AI and made in the thumbnails, and it will make it to my eyeballs before I even get a chance to hit play on the trailer, which means like if there's like this big awesome full frame shot of like Galactus, like I will have seen that before I even hit play on the trailer, or probably more than likely it's going to be like a fully rendered like Ben Grimm or something.
That Silver Surfer, we haven't seen Silver Surfer yet either.
That's true. I would the strategy is going to be make it to the trailer before I start just browsing on my phone. And maybe my child would help me with that, because that's usually the first thing I have to tackle during the day.
Yeah. So what I'll do is, if I get it, I will send that to you, Mike, so you can just check our text threads for that trailer link. So
that will be helpful.
I'll just get that to you. No images, just the trailer with that. But I did tell Mike February 4th is also, if you abbreviate that, it's F4. So F4 day. So I was like, all this is kind of lining up for this trailer to debut. Not only do I trust this Good Morning America bit, but it being F4 day is huge. Yeah.
And they've also done this before with trailers that have premiered on GMA.
Yeah, exactly. Disney has a pretty good relationship with them. They do a lot with that. Maybe have the cast there or the directors, right? Maybe streaming interview. But we talked about, why would this not be at the Super Bowl then? They debuted on a Tuesday. Why did they not debut at the Super Bowl? Well, it needs its own news cycle, essentially. You get a whole week of Fantastic Four trailer before everybody else comes through and blows it away. You don't want it competing with Jurassic Park or Jurassic World or Mission Impossible or, any other trailer for news. Like, everyone will be talking about every trailer, ranking them, listing them on Monday. No, just give Fantastic Four its own little boost beforehand. And even if they want to replay it or like an abbreviated version during the Super Bowl, that's fine. But it will have a lot of eyeballs, a lot of conversation pieces, I think, going on Tuesday through Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually put this in here. Captain America: Brave New World is coming out next week. I have tickets for the 13th, the Thursday the 13th, to watch it. They have. I'm just gonna actually wipe this up because it's about the Super Bowls that we just talked about. Apparently, there's just one post-credit scene. But Mike, that could be a leaker not knowing what the second one is, right? I think the second one will lead either into Doomsday or Fantastic Four, maybe Thunderbolts. They are both kind of in that, political grounded thriller scene. Any thoughts on that? Where you think, what will you do at the end of that?
I mean, we do know Elaine from Seinfeld.
Yeah.
I apologize. I cannot.
Val. Just say Val. Just say Val.
Val. We know that she's going to be a component in Thunderbolts. I mean, I can easily imagine her popping up within the political realm of the next Cat movie. So yeah, that could be a post credit. And she kind of like lives and thrives, I feel like, in the post credit scene nowadays.
Yeah. She was like, I think, briefly in Falcon and Winter Soldier even as well, right? So she does have some ties to these characters. I would also possibly even imagine, was it Sharon Carter? Was it Agent 13? the power broker, as they called her, maybe looping her back into some of this stuff. I think they could probably salvage her from that show as well at the end of that. So I don't know where it's going to go, honestly. Last year we had Deadpool and Wolverine. It was great to see it. It was very, very isolated movie, right? Very siloed. Even the post-credit scene was just referencing a joke they did earlier in the movie. So we'll see if they pull out one or two post-credit scene kind of going forward and how that ties into it. Daredevil Born Again, Mike, we are coming up on that. It's now February, so we're 2 months from Daredevil, revisiting that. So it's exciting. It is officially rated 18 plus in the UK, which you might be thinking, well, that's kind of weird, or why is this relevant? Previously, most of their other shows on Disney Plus are rated 16. So this gets the harder R, if you will, in the England, which means it will probably get obviously a TVMA in the US, and they'll be pushing that rating probably as far as they can for the show. How many hallways is he going to beat up this time? Well, I think it has to do with the villain. What is this? It's not. I want to say Echo. Muse. Yeah. I like 4 letters. What is it? It is Muse. So I think it'll have to do with that. There'll probably be a lot more blood, a lot more violence than we probably used to. I don't even think they were rated. I don't even think the Netflix season was rated 18 plus. I think it was still 16 back then. So sounds like they're even
Netflix is like the wild, wild west of just like, unless it's a kid's account, like you never know what you're going to put on, if it could have hardcore violence or if it's just going to be something funny that your kid probably could have watched with you.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see, obviously why is it rated a little higher over there than it has been previously. So we'll keep you guys posted. Again, 2 months till Daredevil Born Again. We are eating good in Marvel right now, Mike. We got a lot going on. And for those who are interested, we are going to be talking about at least the first episode, possibly 2 of Spider-Man, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man at the end of the show. Full spoilers. Moving on, Black Panther 3. I don't know how to say this name. I'm going to go, but the rumor is Achebe. I don't know. Achebe will be the antagonist in this movie. This is a character created during the Christopher Priest run of Black Panther in the late 90s. A lot of people will be familiar with, kind of once you see the artwork. This character is a brilliant strategist and manipulator. His goals typically revolve around destabilizing Wakanda's leadership and exploiting its resources for his own gain. So it sounds a little bit like maybe Killmonger 2.0, if I was to kind of throw that out there. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe less of like just like a personal bomb dropped in the throne room, and maybe more of like, oh, I want to manipulate this whole country and situation. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's the only kind of like throne that exists within the Marvel universe at like this current time. I mean, they kind of played with the concept in Thor like a little bit, but it seemed like it never really mattered who was on the throne or not, because like Odin was like kind of all powerful, so it just didn't matter. But Wakanda is more of a real place on Earth, so I think there's a lot of fun that you could have there with the story of like, oh, how does this whole country function? Because I mean that. One of the most interesting unexplored things in Marvel right now is just the country as a whole of Wakanda. Like every time we go there, we're just in a field or some sort of crazy mountain range, or we're like inside of like a throne room or a science lab. Yeah, exactly. So like we've never really like experienced the country.
And they kind of delved into it in the first Black Panther a little bit, right, when they were out on the streets with it. But like it was brief, and obviously Black Panther 2 was dealing with the loss of Chadwick Boseman. So it sounds like this is going to come back and deal with like, again, political destabilization for Wakanda, because they're not used to that, right? They're not used to outside influence. They finally unveiled themselves at the end of the first Black Panther. It's new to them, so we'll see what this is. This could be Denzel Washington's character, right? He said he had a spot written for him. So maybe having someone with a little more age, wisdom, experience in that role would be better suited than someone younger. Killmonger was more like, again, he was more like, militant in his approach. So we need someone with a little more subtlety, a little more like playing the chess game rather than the checkers game at the end of the day. So I could absolutely see him pulling off this role in this description. So very very excited to see more about Black Panther 3. I think this movie has a lot of my interest kind of going forward to see how this kind of wraps up the Black Panther arc, and if they in fact do bring in an aged up son of T'Challa and Nakia. So keep an eye out for that. Avengers Doomsday is hot on. It's going to be filming before we know it, Mike. We're going to be getting behind the scenes photos, people, actors on set filming. You think they're going to do that thing where they film a bunch of scenes they don't use just to throw people off again?
I'm more worried about the Russo brothers posting more cryptic Instagram photos of like, oh, if you connect the bucket and the ladder behind this photo, it spells out the secret spoiler in the movie.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that till you mentioned that. But I also know they filmed a bunch of they filmed a lot of scenes they never ended up using. I think just to like throw off people. Like, oh, there was like it was Doctor Strange and like Bruce Banner like scenes or Ant-Man and Doctor Strange scenes they filmed together and they never used because they were like, no, we just did it to make people try to create their own scenarios. But we'll see what that is. But one of the rumors is I think Kelsey Grammer's out being interviewed. I don't know if he's in a movie or his show's wrapping up, one of the two. But he's probably going to come back as Beast in the upcoming movies. They did that huge redesign in the Marvels. If I could tell you anything about the Marvels, it was that Kelsey Grammer's Beast was in there at the end. So it seems like that perked up a lot of ears. They'll want to probably reuse that model, bring him back into the movie. I don't think this is a big stretch.
I think his visual is close. I think it needs a little bit of tweaking. The only thing I remember from that like kind of Beast cameo, I was like, this is extremely saturated blue. I just remember it being obviously the most bluest thing on screen.
And the room was bluish gray too. So it very much, they'll probably not use the same. They'll probably pick it up a bit. But the theory is like, what's her name? Photon or whatever it was. Maria Rambeau ended up in the X-Men movie universe. And that's that will be the X-Men movie universe that is dealing with like the incursions and crossover in Doomsday Secret Wars. And that'd be fine.
Yeah,
cool.
I mean, they're lucky in a sense of where Beast can be a fully rendered character, but you get to keep the iconic performance and voice of Kelsey Grammer because he's aged out of that role for sure. They're lucky that they get this way.
And the critical reception, fan reception to X-Men 97, Beast was in that again, right? Bringing that back, like they're gonna tie into that, like, oh yeah, nostalgia factor as well. So
he's so blue. I'm looking at him now. It's like he's so blue. Like I know he's supposed to be blue, but like, does it need to be this blue?
I mean, maybe they changed the blue. Again, the room was very blue as well. I look into the background because I have the photo in our video here. But I did enjoy the design a little better. Like the beard and the hair fits a little better, I think, than the prosthetics and stuff wasn't bad, but he just moves a little cleaner, I think, in this one as well. So, I don't know. It's exciting. It's exciting to look at that. I'm like, oh yeah, we can bring back some of those X-Men with upgraded effects and visuals from the early 2000s. Shifting into DCU, Mike, I would tease us at the top. Lanterns. The show is officially camera testing. That means they're going to be filming this sooner than later, right? You don't camera test without a plan. So actor Garrett Dillahunt has shared some camera tests, and then obviously I've linked out to that where they showed the chairs for the actors. Kyle Chandler, Kelly MacDonald, who plays the love interest, Garrett Dillahunt, who's the villain along the way. So pretty cool. I think this is actually moving faster than the Waller TV series. So but this one may, like I put the notes here, this may rely on more post-production, so I can't say it'll come out beforehand, but absolutely love that this is moving faster than just, hey, we're talking about doing the Lanterns show still, right?
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to be teed up in any capacity from the Superman movie. Mm-hmm. Will there be any connection? Will this show talk about Superman in any way? Mm-hmm. Just kind of curious.
They have again, I always bring up Nathan Fillion's Green Lantern in Superman, huge spot in the trailer. He's a corporate sponsored Green Lantern rather than these other two. So how many Green Lanterns are there per quadrant, Mike? There used to be 2 per space quadrant whenever you read the comic book. So the fact that there's like 3 confirmed 3 right now, if not more, is going to be the big question. So I'm excited to learn more about the Lantern lore that they've set in the DCU proper. It is sad that it's Earth-based murder rather than like space-based murder, but with the casting of Sinestro, we said last week, they are pulling some good stuff out of this. So this is like where my hope is. I really like Green Lantern as in the books and the characters. I'm hoping that this, knock on wood, knocks it out of the park. The Batman 2, this is like the biggest stretch I've ever heard in news / rumors. But the production designer for The Batman says the Elliot Bridge name in the movie was intentional. The character Thomas Elliot is Hush in the comic books and was rumored a year or two ago to be the villain for this movie. So, sure, I guess. Like, I put this in here because I was like, maybe we can pull something out of this together, Mike. But the more I read it out loud, the less impressive it is.
A bridge is Who knows? It's a bridge. I'm surprised people are going frame by frame enough to pay attention to the name of bridges in a movie.
Well, yeah.
What is this, Madison County?
It could be.
Huh?
It could,
anyone get that one? Anyone get that out there?
Yeah.
Bridges of Madison County?
Yeah.
A reference I don't even understand.
Well, I think they might be. This actually might be over the River Kwai. Bridge over the river. No. Okay.
Oh. Give me a second.
Yeah, we shouldn't do this. We really should. We are literally probably losing listeners and subscribers right now to this. But the thing is, if they were to do, again, we've talked about the Batman 2, they need to do characters they've not done before. Hush is more of a modern character who has personal ties to Bruce Wayne and figures out he is Batman and tries to ruin his life in both ways. I think that's a great grab rather than relying on the Joker or characters we've seen in any other movies so far, right? I think we need to, if we're going to do the Batman 2 in a realistic, real and gritty scenario, we can only get so gritty and realistic after so many Batman movies. It needs to be Hush, probably. But that's also not CG related, so they might have two villains. They might have him and Mr. Freeze, as we've talked about as well, in there.
Yeah, I wonder if Gunn and Safran are exerting any authority on villains allowed to be used. Not because they don't think Matt Reeves will be successful and make, box office dollars, which they desperately need. That's not it. But, I think probably one of the more recent modern additions to the Batman universe, which has a ton of meat on the bone, is the Court of Owls. Yeah. And, do you introduce the Court of Owls in a Matt Reeves universe that, kind of has a ticking clock on it in a way? Or, do you introduce that into a bigger Batman universe that Gunn wants to build out? Because I feel like the Court of Owls fits really well into the Matt Reeves Batman universe. It's very, very grounded.
I think there's no there's no guarantee that if they try to build it into a larger universe for James Gunn, that will live beyond 5 years. Like, I feel there's a bigger time or a ticking clock on the DCU as it is than there is Matt Reeves Batman. So if they wanted to do one good movie about the Court of Owls, I give it to Matt Reeves rather than try to build something in the DCU, which we don't even know when Batman's coming, right? That could be 10 years before we get Court of Owls. And I think Matt Reeves could pull it off in one movie based on, like you mentioned, how realistic it is at the end of the day. But anyway, the Elliot Bridge, Mike, good for them. Moving on to the Teen Titans, I think the writer for Supergirl, Anna Nogueira, is the writer for the Titans movie, possibly. But the rumor is that Damian Wayne will be the Robin in this Teen Titans, not Dick Grayson, because he'll probably already be Nightwing in the DCU's timeline, right? They've been around for a while. It's aged up. It's lived in. It's not brand new. So, and we know that Damian is coming probably in Batman the Brave and the Bold movie. And we had a report several months ago, and I went back and looked at our notes, that Damian Wayne will recruit the Titans to fight Ra's al Ghul, who is his, maternal grandfather. So,
sounds rad to me. I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful to Robins out there, but they're a little interchangeable, depending on the purpose you need them for.
I would rather have a Nightwing like exist in this world already rather than go through all the Robins to get to Damian Wayne, right? Like we don't need to know about, like, everyone knows who Nightwing is already. We don't need to educate people on Nightwing. So having Batman's son be Robin, I think actually makes it a better connection at the end of the day. So this is fine. I mean, I was thinking when I was writing this, I was thinking about rewatching Teen Titans Go to the movies because they run over that dude and they're like, his dad's a cop, and then they drive away, and that's like one of my favorite gags in that entire movie. So
Great.
it's good stuff. Mike, I shared this with you, and this is where we had to get into some legal stuff here. The Superman estate, or Joe Shuster, one of the two people who created Superman's estate, is suing Warner Brothers Discovery / DC for not licensing rights for its upcoming film from James Gunn in, and this is asterisk, Canada, the United Kingdom, Ireland, and Australia. And you might be saying, how can they do this? And I, because Joe Shuster and was it Joe Siegel as well? They assigned the rights to DC before it was DC, whoever owned who transformed DC in 1938, Superman to them. However, in countries that have the British legal tradition, contain this little bit of text here. Provisions that automatically terminating such assignments, such as Superman to DC, 25 years after an author's death, which I believe Schuster died in 91, 92, whatever it is, vesting in the Schuster estate the co-author's undivided copyright interest in such countries, meaning for copyright law in these countries that were founded by England and have British law, when an artist dies after 25 years, the copyright goes back to the author's estate. It
sounds like it's reverse. It's like it's reverse copyright law or something.
Yeah.
Because usually you never hear about the copyright going back. I mean, this just seems like, lawyers being lawyers of just like, hey, there's money on the table. Do you want to go get it? Like, yeah, let's do it. And it obviously it's strategic that it's hitting the news, now when they could have done this a long time ago and kept it quiet, So they'll get their like little cut, they'll probably get like a couple mil to be quiet, and then they'll recede back, into the shadows.
So I dove into this, and it was apparently it sounds like reverse copyright, but the way it worked is like back in like the 1800s, right? When an author licensed something through the copyright, they would still maintain payments to the author's wife and family in case they passed away, because women, couldn't work back then. So the way it was, like, they could be that, and then they could relicense or the estate the wife if they were still around after 25 years, which back then was very unlikely. They could relicense it and, like, obviously negotiate bigger if it was still popular. So that's kind of how it works here.
Yeah, I wonder if there's I guess if there's a version where that copyright also would eventually expire, because here in the United States, isn't it, 78 years or something?
So
after the creator's death, it becomes public domain. There
is.
So I wonder,
they have public domain as well.
I wonder if the public domain comes after that initial 25 years, then you start adding years on to that.
So
Superman's got to be hitting public domain soon.
34. Just so you know, Batman, Superman, and I believe Wonder Woman will fall into the public domain starting in 2034. Wow,
that is soon. Like, if depending on how you plan out a cinematic universe, that could be that could be entering like a big phase of their universe. Wow.
Yeah. So, but again, there's an asterisk here. It's not all. It's like the Mickey Mouse thing, right? It's only when Steamboat Willie came in, you can only use things from Steamboat Willie, not all the other Mickey Mouse mythos that they've created over the years, right? It was like no color, no certain things. So the Superman / Batman / Wonder Woman that's coming in is only from like the 1930s, which is like they like Superman. They didn't have mythos back then. He was just a very strong dude who could leap buildings in a single bound. What's that animated show they made back then, Mike, that I downloaded for you?
Oh, the Fleischer
So
animated stuff.
So probably a little bit like that, if not beforehand, right? Like very generic kind of characters work.
Yeah. I mean, if you were a movie studio that wanted to make enemies with Warner Brothers, I think there is a really, really cool movie you could make with just this first appearance of Superman.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is like Action Comics 1 or something like that. Like it's very retro. You could do like a whole like time period piece, like put Superman in this vintage costume. You could remake a shot of this cover where he's holding up the car and everything.
I just sent you the same image. Like the S is smaller on the chest, right? Like it's very much a different era of Superman. So the one thing that I did think of, I'm like, oh, what horror / slasher movie are they going to make with this Superman? Like,
Exactly. And is it going to be Superman saving you from the slasher, or are they just going to turn him into a mindless killer too?
Yeah. Apparently, when he created, he could not fly. He could only jump. So we can't have a Superman that flies in public domain yet.
Hey, saves on budget,
Yeah, exactly. And he actually, Metropolis, the Daily Planet, Smallville did not exist back then. So again, this was back like what the 30s. They were like what newspaper comics, right? Like they didn't have comic books and like story planes as they knew today. They were just having fun, telling little stories. So Superman is interesting. I think, obviously, while it may be lawyers, I still think, they copyright law should be followed, right, Mike? We believe in that pretty fairly. So hopefully, there will just be a settlement. They'll pay the Schuster estate, and this will be swept under the rug. I don't think it will stop the movie. I 100% don't think it will stop the movie. At all. And I don't think anyone outside of people who follow this stuff will ever hear it either. If I went and asked my wife, have you heard about the Superman creators estate suing to stop Superman in Canada? She's gonna be like, what the hell are you talking about? You just go buy that TV you want, Chris. Like, shut up. Yeah, I thought it was a fun little thing, because we always talk about, like, Mike, if we had money for the show, what would we do? Buy a lawyer.
Hire a lawyer.
Hire a lawyer. So that was fun to see a bunch of that. Speaking of Superman, Henry Cavill, we talked about at the top of the show, is in talks to play a villain. Mike, you nailed it, in an upcoming Star Wars project. We do know that Simon Kinberg is working on a trilogy adjacent to Star Wars, maybe 10, 11, 12, and then the Rey movie is not part of that. It's just a standalone movie, but she could appear in these movies. I did some research on the Yuzhan Vong after last week's episode, right? We talked about the Star Wars, was it expanded universe they had in their books for a while. I think he'd be pretty cool to play one of those force non-force connected villains, right? He's got the physicality. He doesn't need the force. He could just be a brutal person with a lot of muscle mass in a movie. So I think you nailed it. Like he looks better as a villain than he does a hero sometimes in these movies.
Yeah. And like I always hear actors say it's more fun to be the villain than anything else, so I'm sure he'll have a good time.
Yeah, he'll work for that paycheck. Absolutely. In good news, Mike, thank God, Sony's SPUM Universe, the Sony Picture Universe of Marvel characters, has removed its 2025 untitled Marvel movie that they never actually started filming. So,
what would it have even been? I mean,
Bad Bunny. It was El Muerto, wasn't it?
Oh, possibly. And maybe they just left it up there in case, maybe Madam Web gets a cult following and we can make another one of those. I think it was just Morbius.
My guess is contractual. Like, we have to say we have it up there until the first of the year. That it is. Also, was it Hypno Hustler from oh my gosh, Donald Glover?
Is it Donald Glover?
Yeah, Donald Glover. That was the other one. So Hypno Hustler and El Muerto were the two movies that never got off the ground.
Oh my gosh, I wonder if anybody got paid for that stuff, right? Well, even if it was just like, oh, we're gonna pay you just to develop something, and then oh, it's canned. It's like, oh, well, thanks for the $1.5 million,
Yeah. I assume they probably did, but I think what is it? Sony has the rights of Spider-Man in perpetuity as long as they say they're making something, even though I think they've all worked it out now. But But anyway, they can stop threatening us with more Sony Marvel movies for at least a little bit while we wait on this. And that leads us into our last couple minutes here, Mike. We can talk at the end of the show here about Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which is now on Disney+. And I just watched the first episode before we got on here. Like, literally, it ended like right before we got on here, because Mike knows I've had a roller coaster of a week. I've been a very busy person. But I was able to watch the first episode. There's 2 out, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Only 2. It's animated. I want to go ahead and say, like, you know, I said this last week. The reviews were coming out last week before it dropped this week, and people that I know are notoriously harsh and just kind of dickish on stuff they don't like anyway. Were actually very warm and receptive to this show as a whole. They've seen the whole series. Rotten Tomatoes reviews have this as the second highest Marvel TV series on Disney Plus, right behind X-Men 97. I watched the first episode, Mike, and I just want to say, out of this, I need to watch the second one probably, because that first one didn't really do a whole lot for me other than say, here are the characters kind of going on. What about you? You've seen both of them, I assume. Then I have.
Yeah, I caught them both. This show is a little fascinating to me from just like an origin point of view. And then that kind of almost informs my opinion of the show overall. Because going into it, I just kept thinking, who is this show for? You know, it's hard for me not to think about the strategy behind it, especially when it's coming out of like a big studio. Everything, there's a strategy to it, right? You know, this isn't like an A24 that's just like, oh, it's a good script and it's a good director, so we're just going to make the movie, right? You know, there's some motivation behind this. And we reported on the show back when this was first announced that this was supposed to be like the prequel to Tom Holland. This was going to be Spider-Man freshman year. And they probably weren't going to get Tom Holland as a voice actor, but I'm sure they reached out to the person who was doing Tom Holland in What If,
so
you know, like, kind of like the.
It is. So this is Hudson Thames, who did the voice Peter Parker in all of DC or MCU out animated right now, and he will return in Marvel Zombies again. So yes, it is the one voice actor for all Spider-Man. Sorry.
Gotcha. So it's like, with all of that being said, you can see the strategy there, right? Of just like, okay, we get to make more MCU content without ever turning on like a physical camera, right? We get to tell more of the Spider-Man story, but, you know, people are exhausted of origin stories, so we can just do it all in animation. We can explore this whole area of before he, you know, becomes the Spider-Man that we all know. And, you know, that's our push, you know, that's our marketing budget right there. It's going to be so easy. But then, you know, they start to pivot, they start to change things, and all of a sudden it's kind of multiversal, but they're not really calling it multiversal. So then when you start to pull out and look at it, you just go like, oh, this is just another Spider-Man cartoon. Mm-hmm. You know, they make these all the time. Like every 3 years they cancel one and make a new one, because the kids that watch it get older, and then they need to start on like the new generation of kids that they're going to sell Spider-Man toys to. But then you start watching this one and Spider-Man says hell. It's like, oh, okay, so this isn't really for kids, but it's not like edgy like that Spider-Man animated one that was like on MTV, you know? It's like he's not in
Spider-Man
college, he's not
Unlimited or whatever it was.
Yeah, like he's not like going on dates or whatever. And I think if I remember right, oh man, it's been a long time since I've watched it, and I watched like a video essay recently about the MTV Spider-Man one, and I think like the person who played like Electro had like some sort of real like demons or something in that show. But we're not going quite that far. So I just watch the show and I go, who is this show meant to be for? Like, the art style is beautiful. It's very bold and like comic book
Steve, this is exactly Steve. Like, if you went and like pull up a Steve Ditko comic book from Spider-Man from like the 70s or 60s and 70s, you'd be like, oh, I see exactly where they got these designs from, because it looks awesome. It looks just like an animated comic book at the end of the day.
It looks beautiful. There's still frames and shots that make me think like, oh, I could easily see this character popping up in a Spider-Verse movie. You know, I can, the universe is already made. You could see like, you know, Gwen Stacy popping into here from the Spider-Verse movies, you know, trying to recruit this Peter Parker for a one last mission, right?
Yeah.
So since it ends up being its own unique thing that's like slightly more mature, you know, my brain just can't turn off going like, oh, what's the shelf life of this thing? Where does it fit within the universe? kind of going like, what's the point of it all? But then, I watched the 2 episodes and I was like, oh, I like this. This is fun. This is engaging. I don't feel like I have to track things so intently like I do when I'm watching like other Marvel stuff to see what it ladders up to. After I finished the second episode, I was like, yeah, I'd watch more of this. Or I wish I could binge it right now. It sucks that I have to wait another week to watch it. I'm not as, I would say, gripped as I was watching X-Men 97. I feel like that's telling a much more mature, nuanced story. And this one, it's like everyone's just friends. Like this is like the thing where like you're not gonna see Peter like get bullied in the hallway. Like he's friends with the football players in this. So it's like everything is really, really nice. It's a weird kind of change of pace.
Well, and also again, I think the thing I'll differentiate this X-Men 97. X-Men 97 tugs on your nostalgia strings a little bit, right? It's like, hey, remember watching this? This one doesn't have literally anything kind of tied to it. And to your point, what I like about this, I don't know what's next. Like literally, in the first episode, Peter shows up to his new school, and a Doctor Strange portal opens above it, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell is going to come out of that thing. Could be Doctor Strange, could be literally anything, right? And I was like, so I like that there are no expectations of the MCU in here. Now there are some playback stuff, right? Like there's like when in the first episode, Spider-Man catches a van into a bus. We saw that scene in live action. I know in episode 2, Mike, we talked about last week, there's the Civil War scene coming up where they play back Civil War, drawn frame for frame. The battle at the airport. So like I'm enjoying.
Oh, if that pops up in episode 2, it would have been like blink and you miss it because I did not see it in the second episode.
Okay, well then it might be later on. But like there are no, to me, I guess there are some MCU inspirations, but at the point I'm at, I'm like, I don't know what's next, and I enjoy not trying, like being surprised, if you will. Like if this was Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and I think they even said this, if this was the MCU Spider-Man and they maintain that, they have to fit within a certain box, a certain playground, right? They can't contradict things. They'd have to play by certain rules and certain things we've already seen. But in this one, literally looks like a spider craven creature falls out of a portal, and you're like, I don't know who that is, but I don't think that happened in the MCU proper, so I'm excited to watch this kind of going forward.
Yeah, I'm curious if that Doctor Strange is implying when he's like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here. Was that meant to be he's in the wrong universe, or he's just in the wrong part of town? I wasn't entirely sure. And was that like a symbiote character he was trying to
we looked
wrestle?
This up. We looked this up when they did it. It's not a symbiote. I'd have to go back to our notes from like a year ago, but we did look up who this character was. They're just a kind of more of a feral spider. But it could be obviously from a different universe. I wouldn't say it's anywhere on Earth or a different planet even. And I'm not going to say that what we saw there is or is not how Peter Parker got his spider powers in the MCU, but it's a nice little way to nod and wink at the camera if they wanted to later. Like if we're in Secret Wars and they come across this creature in Secret Wars, Mike, and he's like, oh, that it gets a black suit from him, wouldn't be surprised. Like they could change it however they wanted to. But one episode in, I was like, oh, this is fun to kind of see this. But the one thing I will say I don't like about this show, and it's not the show's fault, Mike, it's the timeline it set it in, that teachers are just like, yeah, kid, leave school, and then he goes and chases down the villain for like 30 minutes and then goes back to school. I'm like, I like it better when Peter Parker's just doing his regular day job and doing that rather than trying to leave a high school to go fight crime as a freshman, right?
It does make you it makes you wonder, like I think about the longevity of the show, right? Yeah. Is he going to be a perpetual high schooler if this goes on for 3 or 4 seasons? Are they going to have him graduate at some point in time? I know at the beginning of the show he says he's starting at a new school, but yeah, I don't necessarily think well, I guess he would be a freshman if originally the show was called freshman year.
Well, they said it whenever he's with Nico that they're both freshmen. Whenever he meets her in the first episode. But we do know they've already confirmed this for a second season. My guess is that second season was probably already maybe audio recorded with this one as well, knowing that they were going to do Spider-Man sophomore year. And then I think they're pitching the third season. So knowing that Marvel has moved into the television model, not a showing TV series with film people running into the television model, I can see this running for 3, maybe 4 seasons, Mike. And obviously playing in its own sandbox. We know that Dr. Octopus is coming up. I'm pretty sure possibly Electro, some other dudes. The football player is Lonnie Lincoln, Mike, and that character, Lonnie Lincoln, goes on to become Tombstone in the comic books.
Yeah, I saw a TikTok the other day that was like every single friend that they introduced for Peter is like a super powered person at some point in time.
Yeah.
Like the kind of the friend that he makes that he saves her life, you know, from the monster like stomping on her.
Oh, Nico,
like
Nico Minoru. Yeah, she's huge.
Yeah.
She was in
Yeah,
Runaways.
and then somebody else has like everyone has power. So I'm like, oh, is that kind of what they're gonna do? There was a shot right after Peter passes out, falls to the ground. The spider catches a ride on a backpack, and it's just like, oh, it's still out there in the universe. So it's like the spider just gonna go through the whole high school and just like bite everyone, and everyone's gonna get powers.
Well, no one has it, but I do think if they wanted to introduce an animated version of Miles, that's how you do it. Right? Like, because in the Ultimate Universe, in the Ultimate Comics, it's the same Peter the same spider that bit Peter bit Miles. I know it's different in the movies, but like they could say, yes, this spider's been around. It bit one other person and was Miles, a younger kid or something like that.
Or it could be a Silk or something like that. You know, one I guess strategy I could imagine around this of like, oh, why didn't they just like scrap this to begin with? You know, this seemed like this ended up being a lot of trouble, you know, announced during that era where Disney was just greenlighting everything. Why didn't they just can this? I would think there's 2 advantages that even if your whole strategy is out the window is, one, it's Spider-Man. It's one of the most recognizable superheroes on the planet. You know, it doesn't matter the strategy behind it. You put it on Disney Plus, people are going to watch it and stay subscribed. So at the very least, at least you're holding on to subscribers, maybe even getting some new ones because you got new Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. And second, it could kind of be like keeping Sony in check, like a nice reminder of like, you have the rights to feature Spider-Man. Don't forget that we could build out an entire rich universe of animated Spider-Man that you can't touch or tell us anything about, and we're better at this than you are. And we could just like play you under the table if we had to, you know. And they won't say that out loud, but it just could be a nice reminder that just like, hey, we can crank out great Spider-Man stuff whenever we want, and we don't need your permission to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, this is again another good Spider-Man animated show entry, right? Like you said, I think this and what is it, the kids show, the kids Spider-Man one with the Patrick Stump theme song. Speaking of theme songs, I said this to you like last week, and I was like, hell yeah. And then you were like, this got a good theme song. I'm like, I know, that's why I sent it to you last week.
Yeah, it was cool, and the opening title sequence is really cool, very graphically intense. There's like a cool shot where they have like a bunch of different kind of costume versions of Spider-Man, like popping out of that like kind of comic issue identifier that you see up in the corner of cover pages.
The box.
I don't know if that's alluding to costumes that we'll get to see throughout the show, but it is really, really fun and cool. I don't know if they're going to do cliffhangers at the end of every episode, but there is a cliffhanger at the end of the second episode that's kind of setting up for maybe where more story could come from in the season. But I feel like one thing that we can talk about, which I think was really cool, and they probably had to spend a little bit of money to get this, but they even got the same audio track that's used to introduce Tom Holland in the Civil War movie.
Left Hand Free by Alt J.
Yeah, where he's like going up the elevator, he has the DVD player, he's walking into his room, and then it's like a fun where like we're supposed to be expecting to see Tony Stark on the couch with Aunt May, and it's actually Osborn. I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that's fun.
Yeah. They really like leaned into some of the stuff that did happen in MCU, but also like, it's kind of like a small parallels, but it is fun to see it like that. Like I said, him catching the van earlier. You know, just the little things like that was fun. It was interesting to see his also like turn up his little backpack tube for the webbing, whatever he created.
I like that. It adds a little bit more tension to the action scenes. Of kind of feels like Attack on Titan, of just like, oh, he can be taken out if he needs to. Like if somebody punctures that, he's going to be on his back foot. Now, one hypothetical thing is, I believe probably the bigger and more successful this show is, I fear it pushes back a Spider-Man 98. Not permanently, but I could see like we don't need multiple Spider-Man shows on streaming at once. So my mind starts to battle itself of just like, oh, it's got to be one or the other, and I'd rather have Spider-Man 98. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe Spider-Man is big and popular enough to where they could just alternate, you know?
Yeah.
Like first half of the year you get Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, second half of the year you get Spider-Man 98, you know.
Well, I don't think, like, if they do a third season and that is it, Mike, they do 3 seasons, maybe 4 at most, that would still, I think, as fast as they've already done 2, like, I think this show could turn around pretty quickly and tie into that, because they're going to have to write, animate, voice act all of Spider-Man 98. So I think this would end the moment 98 started as well.
Yeah, you bring up a good point with these production timelines. Maybe things could connect. But yeah, I mean, I gotta have Spider-Man 98. Yeah. Spider-Man 98 is the Spider-Man. I want him.
The one thing I will say about this, that I watched it and I say, have you ever played the Ultimate Spider-Man game for PlayStation 2, Xbox? It's a cell shaded game. This would be perfect to play a video game in this world as Spider-Man. It's cell shaded. Ultimate Spider-Man
game. Okay, I'm looking it up right now, because you can't just Google Ultimate Spider-Man because you get 1,000 things.
Yeah. It came out.
Ultimate,
okay,
I see it.
Superfan Jim gave me his copy of the collector's edition. But like, imagine playing like a game as Spider-Man, and it's like, I love Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2. We don't need to touch the Sony ones or replace them, but like, imagine this art style, and you get to play as Peter Parker around the school, around the city, with different Spider-Man suits. I think it would be fun to see this animation style in a video game.
I kind of want them to just go all in on his cast of friends. Like, you know, don't hold back. Make everyone super powered. I don't care. Yeah. All of these people that are supposed to be heroes, like, I want them all super powered by the end of the first season, and I want them just like running around destroying the school like every episode. I think it would just be fun.
Yeah, a lot of opportunity. I'm very excited. Daredevil, that's another character coming into the show later, voiced by Charlie Cox. So, I'm glad to hear you enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. I can't wait to watch the second episode. It will drop 3 episodes next, Mike, on Tuesday. So you get.
Wow. Okay, so I do kind of get to keep binging it.
Yeah. So they're doing 2 now, 3 next week, 3 the week after, then 2 for the finale. So this will be done within a month. So you're getting an expedited schedule for this. I know originally you said are they just dumping them? But it sounds like they just want to get them out of the way before Daredevil hits Disney Plus proper. So, like I said, between this, Captain America, and Daredevil Born Again, we are eating good in Marvel through May. So, sounds good. Mike, we'll wrap up the show here, but if people want to know what you're doing, where can they find you at?
Yeah, they can read my web comics at liferewardsrisk.com and pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you and see if you end up pulling the trigger on this TV, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Valdan87, VALDAN, or Video Game Systems of the same name. If people want to know more about the show, where they can see the show notes, get ready for our trailer links in 2 weeks, where can they get all them goodies at?
Yeah, head on over to superheroslate.com. That is the HQ for all things Superhero Slate. We have social media accounts too, but I mean, I feel like these social media places exist. They don't exist. They're run by fascists. They're not run by fascists.
Just listen to the show. We don't need to be on social. Just listen to us. That's all we ask.
Just go old school. Boot up your RSS feeds. Throw our podcast
iPod Classic.
URL
Get your
in
iPod Classic. Spin the wheel. You'll find us in there.
Old man waves fist at cloud. That's the energy that we have here at superheroslate.com. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you like listening to podcasts. We're probably there. You can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. What are you excited for Disney Plus this year? I have a feeling Netflix Geek Week is probably going to be sooner than we realize. I'm sure they're going to have lots of fun stuff. What are you excited for there? And we love our super fans. If you want to be a super fan of Superhero Slate, all you have to do is share the show with a friend, share the show with a buddy, and we will be here every week, folks.
That's right. We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.